Welcome, my friends, to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, and I'm thrilled you're joining me today for a fun conversation with a passionate author. We're kicking off the program, like it's our tradition, with a short reading from the feature book. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started.
My name is Brooke Bentley. I am the author of Sideline Confidential. It's my debut novel. My first work of fiction. I was a journalist, so this was my first time writing fiction. It's very, very fun for me, also very challenging. So I'm going to read a portion of the book. This is towards the end, and the lead character, Blake, has been in a journey navigating working for a pro football team in our hometown and dealing with the obstacles of a woman in that role. So just to set the stage. At 8:57 a.m., I crossed the hall and lightly tapped on Karen's door. It's Blake. Although Karen's office was about 10 feet from mine, we never spoke. She worked behind the scenes, mitigating crises. Meeting with her usually meant something was very wrong. Blake, I appreciate your cooperation as we work through this delicate matter, Karen said, and pointed me to a chair across from her. Everything about Karen was sharp. Her black hair was cut into an angled bob that swept against her shoulders. She had a pointy nose, razor-thin lips, and piercing dark eyes. We regret that you've been put into this situation, she continued. I've spoken to Mr. Morgan, and he thought it would be best if we all sit down together. You can tell us in your own words what transpired with Johnny. I smiled meekly. Karen was stone cold unnerving, the ideal team attorney. I was struggling to find my footing around her. It's imperative that we get the facts straight before we proceed, she said, and shuffled documents into a file folder. Okay, I managed to say. Karen straightened the sleeves of her gray blazer and tucked the file folder under her arm. I followed her out of the office and tried to give myself a pep talk. I was not in trouble. I was not the person in the wrong. Johnny was. I was going to stand up for myself and stay strong. When we reached the wood-paneled entrance framing Mr. Morgan's office, Karen turned a stately brass doorknob. Blake, after you. As I stepped inside, one of Mr. Morgan's assistants popped up from behind her desk. She looked about my mom's age, sporting the same poofy short hair with bangs. I imagined my mom doing her job. She would love nothing more than chatting with the players and coaches as they waited for meetings. The thought of it made me feel less intimidated in Mr. Morgan's fortress of mahogany and leather. He's expecting you, the assistant said brightly, opening an interior set of doors. Please do come in, Mr. Morgan bellowed in his aristocratic drawl. He sat at a grand wooden desk adorned with scroll legs and decorative carvings. Behind him hung an oil painting of a muscular chestnut horse. To his right stood his son, Whitaker. Karen handed Mr. Morgan the file folder and then perched on a wingback chair, her legs tightly crossed at the ankles. I sat by myself on a tufted leather couch and stared up at the horse. You're looking at one of the most agile thoroughbreds to gallop this earth, Mr. Morgan said to me. Rigger won me the Kentucky Derby 7 years ago. That day at Churchill Downs ranks up there with the birth of my children. Mr. Morgan looked at Whitaker and winked. But we're not here to talk about horse racing, he continued. We're here because we have a situation on our hands, a very troubling situation. I nodded, sensing it was not yet my turn to speak. This morning we spoke with the commissioner. We also met with Johnny, Mr. Morgan said. We heard Johnny's side of the story, Whitaker interrupted. Now it's your turn. What happened between you two? And how the hell did that conversation end up on the internet? Whitaker's voice prickled with petulance. The Morgans had handpicked Johnny to head their media and press relations when they rebuilt the team. Johnny was their confidant. He'd been the Morgans' loyal media henchman and protector for over 20 years. Their instinct would be to defend him. This would be an uphill battle. Mr. Morgan, I promised you that I was not responsible for leaking that recording. I have no idea who was. In all transparency, I did record the conversation with Johnny. I thought long and hard about sending it to sports sites, but I was too scared. I was too scared that the leak would be traced back to me and that Johnny, you, ranking league officials, you would all kill my career before it started. The room fell silent. I looked down at my clasped hands, which were squeezed so tightly that my thumbs had turned the same shade of burgundy as the leather-bound books decorating Mr. Morgan's shelves. I had to keep going. If I stopped now, I might never work up the nerve again to state my case.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm so excited you guys are joining us today. This is going to be an amazing conversation because I really hope you enjoy that reading as much as I did. If you're new to the podcast, make sure to subscribe. You don't want to miss a single episode. We have new authors, new books, very popular, very up and coming. You don't want to miss them, so make sure to subscribe. So let's get us started because we're here to talk to the fabulous Miss Brooke. Hello, madam. How are you?
Hi, DC. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
So let's start with congratulations on the release of your book. Woo!
I mean, it's like having a baby, really. This book, Sideline Confidential, had lived in my head or on my computer for 10 years. So this has been a very exciting time to have it out in the world.
I am excited for you. Brand new book going from journalism to fiction. I need to know the background of where this book came from. You said 10 years in the making. I want to know where it started and what made you decide, like, okay, we're going to put this baby out there. Tell us.
So I started writing this book when I started working for the Houston Texans. And that was right out of journalism school. I had gone to journalism school at the University of Southern California. It had been my dream, my longtime dream as a little girl to be a sports reporter. And I got this amazing job right out of school to be part of the media department, the media coordinator for the Texans as they brought their media in-house. And my first day on the job, my boss said that I would be riding my own bus because they were concerned about me riding the same bus as the players and coaches on game days, that I might distract the team. And I thought, that is so strange. And then I found out that I was the first woman to consistently travel with the team. Now, this was back in 2007, so it was a while ago. And I thought, okay, I guess that's the reality of this job. In my case, the situation changed. The team really got to know me, liked me. I ended up riding the bus with the team and it all worked out. But that experience stuck with me, and other experiences that I had working for the team, as well as the women that I got to know in the NFL who worked for other teams and had some pretty, I would say, almost scarring experiences. A few of them told me reading this book gave them PTSD. And so as I heard their stories, I thought there really is a book there. And at first I thought it would be The Devil Wears Prada set in the NFL. And then I realized there was actually more layers to it, especially when news came out of Washington, D.C., of the toxic culture and the sexual harassment that had happened on that team. And I thought, all right, there's a book here, and it's more like lessons in chemistry and The Devil Wears Prada set in the NFL. And so I started writing it. In 2020, I read what I had written because I'd kind of just sort of been writing off and on for a long time. And I realized it was very disjointed. I was going to start with a blank page and a determination to make this book happen. So 2020, I did it. I sat down, and the publishing deal happened last year, and it was quick. We wanted it out before football season, and it went flying.
This is so many layers. You're tackling something that is slowly coming to light. Nobody really wants to discuss it. We know it's there. We heard about it. We've seen the movement come along, but we're not talking about it. Nobody really wants to come forward and say, this is a problem. What made you honestly tackle this entire concept that is so hard for people to realize this is not healthy? This is not good. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah, I think that I didn't fully appreciate what I was going through when I worked for the team because I was in it. And then even afterwards, as I became a mom, at that point I was working as a sideline reporter, and I was being contracted by various stations to do that. And I came back from maternity leave after 7 weeks. I mean, I wasn't even gone that long, but I needed to be back before the Super Bowl for local coverage. Came back early for my maternity leave. And my boss said something about how I hadn't lost my baby weight yet. And I thought, men just don't have to go through this. This job is geared so much towards men, and that's so hard. And it really caused me to reflect back on a lot of my experiences I had throughout my tenure in sideline reporting and working in the NFL. And I think what happened in Washington exposed a very deep layer of, well, there was some serious sexual harassment there, but just the challenging culture that women face when they work in the NFL or in such male dominated workplaces. And that was, for me, it was very enlightening to talk to other women, to hear their experiences, and also so hard. I mean, it was devastating to hear what a lot of women went through in Washington, D.C. But I do think that then has caused a lot of change. I mean, the NFL had to address that. And that was put front and center, and their ownership ended up ultimately changing in DC because of it. And I really am so grateful that that story by Washington Post and the New York Times got exposed because it has been beneficial for, I think, every woman in the league. Now, listen, there's a lot of change that still needs to happen. I'm not saying that we've completely changed the culture and it's all different now, but I do think there have been steps towards that. And I do think that the focus that that situation brought in DC has been enlightening for every team.
It's one of those situations where we're looking at a culture that we have made it a man's game. We defend the boys. And this is where you hear that saying, boys will be boys. I'm like, they're
Yeah.
adults. They should still be adults.
Yes. I mean, we're humans. We should be humans and all be nice to each other at a basic level. I think that the hardest thing for me was being a young woman handling that. Now, if I'd been put in those situations, I would have been able to stand up for myself and I would have more of an idea of, hey, listen, I've earned my respect. I've been in these situations before. I know I belong. I deserve to belong. As a young woman, I don't think that it's that easy. And so many young women don't feel like they can stand up. They just feel lucky to be there. At least that's how I felt. I felt so lucky to have that job and to be chosen for that job that I felt like I just had no way to question anyone or stand up for myself and challenge someone. And that's what really inspired me to write the book because it's so much harder for young women getting going in those careers.
You have such a passion for it, and it's amazing. I love the fact that before we started, you mentioned the fact that this was your dream. You wanted to be a sideline reporter. And I'm going, that is amazing. First, you need to know the sports because I'm like, I think it'll take me so much more longer than that. But you have this passion, and now you're translating into this book. What do you want your readers to get from this book that you're bringing to life to them?
Well, so like you said, I wanted to be a sports reporter as a little girl. I played a lot of sports. I played basketball, volleyball. So I loved the sports from the get go. And then I had the benefit of seeing two amazing women, Hannah Storm, who came out of Houston, and Lisa Malowski, who were early anchors in Houston. And there were not many females who did that job. And Hannah was even on the radio. So I was inspired by them. I mean, this it's in my yearbook. You know, it says that senior year, found in 10 years, reporting on the sidelines. I was so determined to have that job. But what I really wanted this book to show is A, yes, you should follow your dreams. You have a dream like that, go for it. But B, there's so many lessons you can learn along the way, and especially when you're getting going as a young woman. And for me, I think finding a mentor is so important. And knowing that you have a voice and knowing that other women have gone through those same things that you are going through, and that there's a sense of community out there of women, hey, we've been in those positions. And also that as a young woman, you do make mistakes, but that's okay. There's no shame in that. Like you can learn from those mistakes and then move on. And I really wanted this book, especially to speak to young women getting going in male dominated industries.
It's one of those things that we take for granted that sometimes you just need somebody out there that has done it before that can say, you can do this and it will be okay. So, for everybody who's curious, what is the genre of this book? Where do you actually say this is a category that people should look for?
So, I mean, it's women's fiction, commercial fiction. I think those two would probably be most appropriate. Some people have listed it under sports, but I know a lot of women who've read this who don't particularly like football and they love the book. And there is obviously football in the book, but it's more about a woman's journey than necessarily about the sport of football. It could take place in a investment bank. It could take place in a production studio. It translates to other industries. In fact, one reviewer was like, I just don't think I'm going to want to review this on Bookstagram. Like, I'm not a football person. She read it. She goes, no, I totally connect. Because I worked in a male dominated industry and I 100% saw myself in this book. And for me, that was the biggest compliment because if you don't like sports and you are able to connect, then I've been able to find a humanistic element there that is deeper than just, saying it's about football.
Ooh, I love it. It's one of those connections. And books open doors for everybody to start those conversations and be able to reflect. I've been there, I've seen it. What could have done differently? As you grow in this book, how much of yourself did you see yourself growing with your character?
I obviously based quite a bit of it off of my own experiences. It's about a young woman moving back to her hometown. She's working for her hometown team. Now, this team is in Oklahoma City because I didn't want to base it off of one NFL team. I didn't want people to think this is about the Redskins or this is about the Texans because it takes elements from lots of different teams. But I do obviously see some of myself in the character. This character is just totally in over her head and overwhelmed and naive when she starts working for the team. but it is not what happens to her, and her journey is not my journey. Like I said, I took elements from other women and my life wasn't that juicy. I needed there to be more of a storyline, and it's fiction. That you can have fun with it. There's some fun, juicy elements to it. It's actually funny. A local sports writer who's actually a former president of the NFL Writers Association, he was asking about the quarterback that she has sort of a flirtation with and the lead character, and before she realizes that that's not a good idea. And he said, well, who was that? I said, well, it's made up. And he said, no, 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 that happened. And I said, no. He goes, who was the quarterback you flirted with? I said, no one. It's fiction. It is a made up story. So it's been interesting because so many people in the Houston area assume that it's exactly, based on my life. And I had to remind him it's a fiction book. Literally, that character was invented out of thin air. So there's a lot that's just been put in there. Some may have happened to other people that I know, but it's not my life story.
So, reminder, my dear listeners, this is not a memoir. So,
Right.
do not go off and about. I think that's one of the beautiful things about writing. People do connect, and the more the connection is there, the more they want to believe that it's actually happening to you.
Right.
So, it's a good reminder to tell people this is not my memoir. It's still a fiction world from a place that I know. I just wanted to make sure we clarify that so people are like, yeah, this is not my life. It's not there. Let's just put it that way.
Yes. Thank you, DC. Those are great words. I'm going to actually write those down. That's going to be my mantra.
Anytime somebody asks, like, this is not my memoir, I just
Yeah.
happen to be in the same industry, it will be okay. Trust me. I understand. I have a book dealing with the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and people ask me those questions, and I'm like, I don't work for death. This is not my life. They're like, oh, I was like,
Yeah.
it's not as exciting when it's not about you. I was like,
I
thanks.
know. It's been so interesting. In Houston, on the sports radio stations, they've been reading the books sometimes and trying to guess which characters were real or who was who from the Texans. And I'm like, that did not. One of them texted me, am I right? And I said to the radio host, I said, no, that is an invented character. Lightly based on someone that I knew had that position, but not their personality, not their traits. Like, that's not them.
Welcome to the world of fiction writing. And
Yeah.
because people know you, like, this must be based on people. So no, you're going to spend a lot of time clarifying to people that know that this is not about you. I promise it will be okay. So tell us, Ms. Brooke, what are you working on now? What is next for you? Did you get the writing bug and are you excited to continue?
Yes, I know. I have the bug. It's so hard. You like get your book out there in the world and it feels, so good. It's this high, but your mind starts turning about what to write next. You just can't help it. And I have been asked about a sequel for the book. So I've had some thoughts on that. But the book that's really been percolating for me is a book on the Little League culture in Texas, which is very intense, especially in Houston. What's interesting though is it brings together families from all walks of life. And so you have the family that is dying to get their son this scholarship, or there was a family that had immigrated from Eastern Europe and had come to Houston, and literally their son had never picked up a ball before, but they wanted him to experience team sports. And I just found this like mix of cultures and people all brought together by this team so interesting. I would be in the stands watching my son, and my mind would be inventing stories about what's going on in their lives at home. And everyone comes to this field for these couple hours and we're together cheering for one team. But then when we go off, it's these very interesting different lives. There was someone who was an architect. She was from Madrid. And I found it so fascinating. And I thought, oh, I could do all these different families and bring them together for Little Leagues. That's what's been in my head.
I'm loving that you stay within the force concept and you're really good at understanding and also knowing the dynamics of people, which is really, really fun. So I love it. I can't wait to hear about it. So you need to keep us absolutely updated on these amazing missions of yours.
Oh, thank you. I will. And, sports, like I said, is something I know, but I also think it really brings out a lot about the human condition, good and bad. So it reveals a lot about ourselves.
It's a good way to get in touch with some of the things that we're going, why do we go there?
Exactly.
So tell us, Madam, if you can give an up and coming author, since you're right at the beginning of your career in the writing journey, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
Wow. So a few things. One, my book really came together when I took my writing as a job. And granted, I have another job, but I would schedule my writing hours because I realized how important it was for me to write every day. And for me, the quiet time was usually in the mornings. I have two kids. I would, work part-time. And I realized I needed to get up early and write every day, be in my story, be in my characters, just be in my work and be more present with it. So that was number one. Number two is I connected with some local authors in Houston. And I think learning from other authors, engaging in the writing community was the most impactful thing that I did too, because you can write and then there's the process of publishing, and that's like a whole nother business that I was totally naive to. I had no idea what, you're querying agents and like what goes into publishing a novel. I had no idea. I mean, I was totally clueless. And so it was so helpful to talk to authors who'd been through that and through the publicity machine, writing like a business, connecting with other authors. And then third would maybe be creating a platform and start kind of like having social media channels where you follow other authors, other people in the book community, where maybe, you're starting to write articles for publications and just get yourself out there as a writer. It doesn't mean you have to be even published, but if you can start just writing things for Medium or just getting your word out there is important.
That is really good advice for everyone. And it's things you can start doing now. It's not something that has to be off in the future. You can get your writing started. You can work on your craft and meet other authors. So I think it's amazing. So, Madam, where can our listeners find the book when they can learn more about you? Where are you located?
Okay, so my website, brookebentley.com, has all the information on my book and my writing. I have some other published articles, but my book is available anywhere. All the links are on my website, but Target, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, independent bookstores. It's been exciting because it's been in some independent bookstores and places where I have friends. So it's so fun to see them go, because I love independent bookstores as a writer. There's like my heart sort of belongs to them too. Obviously, the easy place to get a book is Amazon, Target, Barnes and Noble. It's available there. And you can go to my website, brookebentley.com. So it's all the stuff is there.
My friends, we are right around the Christmas season. So if you're looking for a present, this is it. Have an amazing story. Enjoy it. Get yourself lost in here. It will be absolutely fabulous. So, Miss Brooke, before you leave us, are you ready for the lightning round?
Oh, okay. Yes.
Easy peasy. Do not think too hard about this. Let's do this. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Hey.
Oh,
Spicy.
I get up early and have my cup of coffee. I have to have that first thing.
Spicy or sweet?
Spicy.
Nice. This is kind of, you might have given this one away. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird. Big time.
Okay. Mystery or fantasy?
Ooh, mystery.
Okay.
But I like both.
Not bad. Here's a little different one. Let's see how you do. If your character had a theme song, what would it be?
Definitely a female artist. Maybe like Katy Perry, Fireworks, something like that.
I like.
Yeah.
It has been such a pleasure. Do you have any closing remarks for us? Anything you want to tell us?
Well, I just am so appreciative of being on, DC. Thank you for having me. And I love being a part of this writers community, authors talking to other authors, engaging. Like I said, I think that's one of the best parts of being an author is getting out there with the author community. So thank you for everything you do and for having me on.
It has been such a pleasure. I am doing a happy dance for you, celebrating your release. I can't wait. To our viewers, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you stay in touch. We have another author coming up next week. So happy dance. And Madam, congratulations. Thank you so much. Make sure to subscribe, guys. Bye.